How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to the Battlefield of the Mind, hanging out with Lotus Wilson from Renegade Mindset. And we're just going on with the conversation today. She is a bona fide badass, and we're just going to kind of take it all over the place, not only professionally, but have some personal questions. What do you think about this? What's going on with that? But then also get into some, where are we doing our personal growth, our journey, and how we can help as many people as possible. So welcome back, Lotus, the Danger Flower Wilson. What's your nickname? You have a nickname for I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there.
There is a lot of opportunity, and here's what I'll say. So I was called Love or Lovey from family growing up, right? So I always loved that. And then high school, not really anything, but I moved recently because, I just got divorced, newly back to single motherhood and all the fabulousness. And I moved into a new community, which is pretty dope. And I love it here. And a couple of the locals have started calling me Blue.
All right. Listen.
Which makes sense because I have blue hair, but I'm liking it because they're just like, hey, Blue. And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of digging that. I'm kind of digging it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as creative as I was hoping. I was waiting for some flower thing to come up here.
Well, but that's already my natural name. That's my birth given name.
Listen,
so
by the end, I'm going to give you another one. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
It'll evolve as it goes. I give code names to each of my warriors as we figure out each other better.
Uh-huh.
By the end, I'm giving you a code name. We'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. I'm down.
I'm
down.
All right. So what's going on with you? First, give some people an idea of what does Lotus do? And then let's work into some of the conversations we were having earlier, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am founder of Renegade Mindset. I'm a master Neuro Linguistics Programming practitioner. I am a master success and life coach. I do also hypnotherapy. I do tapping. I like to work predominantly with individual mindset or businesses and business teams. It's kind of my sweet spot. And I just call myself a mindset and business strategist because I like to do the high level stuff and help you kind of dismantle and disrupt the bullshit that's been going on and then recreate a new identity so you can up level.
I like it. There's a lot of different techniques you use there too. So having that many tools in the toolbox is very, very useful. Absolutely. So I got one for you. All right. So you help a lot of people in their stuff. Now you're working in corporate settings and you're working with situations that can be pretty tough. And I've used neuro linguistics often when it gets to PTSD or different things that people are really trying to sort out whenever I work with that stuff. And so what are some of your things where this is really where my mastery in this field, if someone's who I would call Lotus for this, where would you be this is what you call me for? Where's your field?
Yeah. So if you're a business client coming directly with your business, not as an individual, then the sweet spot is operational efficiency. Because we also need the team in order to do that, right? So the teams buy in not only to the company. And I always tell my clients, sorry, but it's not about your fucking company. It's about the team. Because if your team's not bought into themselves as an individual, to their life, to their mindset, if they haven't dealt with the shit that's holding them back, they're never going to be able to perform at the level that you want them to, which means it's going to be even harder for them to buy into what your business is all about if they have their own stuff going on, which we all do, right? And naturally, that creates less efficiency from an operational standpoint. I love operations. I love organizational structure, and then team building, and that's all mindset stuff, right? So yeah, operations is where it's at for me.
You see a lot of times, I would say, I'm tough to employ. This is one of my things. So I see corporations or businesses where they try and push all these operation, HR, do it this way, do it our way, policy. But then you kept bringing up often culture. Where do you think that people should be starting? Should it be culture more important or is operations more important? What's the debate on that one?
For me, so I refer to everything that's been, not everything, that's such a generalization. A lot of the mindset that still currently exists in the business world, and I'm not just talking corporate, even all the way down to small business, micro business, right, is this old mindset that I just think is really antiquated. right? Where it's like A plus B equals C. I have to have the organizational structure and the operational management, and then my sales team will produce better, and then I will make more money. But none of that is possible without the team. So I don't even call it culture. I call it team first, right? So when we go from, it's not about the culture of the company, it's about each of your team members individually and the mindset that they're bringing to the table, which of course, then we're going to trickle back and forth between working with the team and then working with those senior leaders, because guess what? It only trickles down. It's not going to trickle up. So what are the senior leaders modeling for the team? That's where culture comes into play. I know what you say you want to model for your company, but what are you actually modeling? I know you say you give a fuck about your employees, but how specifically? Because I don't see it. Right. So that's how I work with the senior leadership from a culture standpoint. But then when I go down and work with the team, it's all individual mindset based stuff. It's the shadow work. It's the repressed emotions. It's the things they haven't wanted to look at or deal with in their life that they don't even know exists. And even if they know it exists, they definitely haven't been willing or wanting to take a look at it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of personal issues that determine how business is run, right?
Absolutely.
So I want to stay on one of the parts here, because it seemed like, and tell me if I got you wrong here, you want to focus more on, if this is going to go well, it's going to go well with leadership, and then it's going to work its way into how the team works. Fair or not fair?
I think it's 50-50. I feel it in my experience, it's 50-50 because leadership is only part of it. So if the leadership does model the culture they want, if they model the work ethic they want, if they model the beliefs and value and identity that they want to create in their company, then yes, the team naturally has an opportunity to grab a hold of that culture. But what gets in the way of them doing so? Their personal values, beliefs, identity, shadow work, things that have held them back. So even if they might be empowered or see it as an opportunity, a lot of the times what I've found is like they don't even realize that they're the ones in their own way of connecting with that. So it has to be equally both. And I think that's where a lot of businesses, where most businesses, all of which that I've ever worked with, right? But most businesses have this either, well, you have to start with the leadership and trickle down, or you have to start with the team and then trickle up, right? I don't think it's either. I'm the one that comes in and goes, no, you have to have both equally from day one, from the day one you start working with me, or we're wasting our fucking time. And I don't like to waste people's time.
Yeah, no, it's good. So, all right. So it's like the whole team thing really isn't just like your leadership is bad. That's why it's this way, or your team is insubordinate, or they're not taking accountability. I actually may even lean into like everyone's telling everyone to be accountable, which is the funniest thing I'm seeing. Is like, I don't know what trend this is, but you need to take accountability, and you need to take accountability, and you need to take accountability. And I find it ironic how much people who are calling everyone to be accountable are doing this.
Yeah, I think accountability is the new buzzword, really. And like perception is projection, and we're all mirrors in life, right? So it's like, well, if I'm the one sitting here, you need to be accountable. You need to be accountable. Well, let me just turn that mirror right back around. What am I not being accountable for, right? Because that's where the actual work begins, and that's where the opportunity lies. But so often, not just in business, but in life, how often do we sit here and go, well, I see this in this person, I see that in that person, and you're holding yourself back here, but we don't ever want to flip the mirror around and go, oh, so if I'm seeing that in them, where does that reside in me? That's where the real opportunity is.
I'd rather do deflection than reflection, please. You be accountable. I'm not doing that. That's funny. No, it's ironic too, and a lot of times, I think that's maybe I'm gonna shift this into a little bit more culture stuff, just human culture, I guess. A lot of things are happening right now, and you're seeing patterns in the way humans are interacting with each other. Yeah. I'm gonna go for a couple ones that people don't want to answer, but you're working in human behavior, and so I'm curious on just your personal point of view, not only as a woman but also as a professional, to get like what is the status here. There's a debate out as far as humanity, if men and women can work in a professional environment and it be problem free. like if it doesn't create problems. And right now, it seems like the jury in the psychology world is out, where we're like, we don't know yet because it's getting tricky. What are your thoughts when you see like the professional world where it starts getting into false allegations? It gets into sexual harassment. It gets into, men and women, like where it gets into falling in love in the office or divorces, or where like, is it better or worse? Is it a distraction, or does it complement things? Like, I just want your opinion on what's going on when you're watching these businesses and people are working together and you're coming into the shit show, you try and organize it.
Yeah. I mean, great question. And here's what I would say is like, when did we stop allowing all ourselves to be human? When did that become a bad thing? It is our humanness that allows us to have free will and opinion and thought processes that are different from each other. It is our humanness that allows us to fuck up. It is our humanness that pisses each other off. So does a world exist where men and women, or women and women, or men and men could ever work together and be problem free? First of all, I'm like, well, what does that even fucking mean? Because from challenge presents opportunity, right? So if we're not being challenged, and a problem is really just a challenge, and a challenge is really just an opportunity. So really, problems are opportunities. So how I hear that question is I go, well, every time there's a problem, quote unquote, we have an opportunity to seek understanding of each other's humanness, regardless of age, race, sexual identity, whatever, right? Male, female, it doesn't fucking matter, right? I feel like what matters most is learning how to communicate with each other, learning how to hold space for each other, relearning how to allow ourselves to be human.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have. And you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more, or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We've got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff, and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story.
Well, this is a utopian answer. Sounds lovely.
Is it?
Sounds wonderful.
Well, but here's the thing.
For like the judgmental people in the office, or the people who start problems, or like when the wrong guy is like misinterpreted, which is a comment. I work with the men, and they're like, I was just asking if she had an extra file thing for it, and she filed a sexual harassment thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't even talking to her about anything else. Or she thought because I was standing close to her in the coffee line that I was trying to do something more. Or like I don't have a meeting with my female manager alone because all she has to do is say I said something I didn't say, and I'm fired. And I know people who have been fired on rumors that weren't even true. So I'm more curious on, is it a communication that needs to be improved, or is there some other issue there that seems to be kind of a problem that's happening where like men and women working together? Is a woman a distraction in the workplace to men? Like, depends on what she's wearing. I don't know what she's.
I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with what we wear, because I'm saying we because I'm a woman, right? I don't think it has to do with what I wear or how I smell or the way I smile at you. I think it has to do with the resources you have available in your brain based on your life experience as to how you're interpreting that situation, right? But and I will say, like, I hear you in regards to like false accusations and like, how do we control these things and all that. And I think it's multifaceted, just like most things in life. Of course, we need to have processes and procedures in place that are based on and guided to protecting as many people as possible, male and female, from those kinds of larger scale, because those are big problems. Those aren't just like, oh, we had an argument, oh, we don't get along, oh, he's sexist, she's sexist, whatever, right? It's very much more like, these are like big, almost like ethical things, right? So I think that it's multifaceted. I think you have to have the right processes and procedures in place in order to mitigate some of that. I think also a lot of it, which this, in my experience, this is the most underlooked area of improvement in businesses, is how you hire and how you onboard. Because we're not, in my experience with the businesses I've worked with, I think I've yet to have a client where I didn't have to help them totally overhaul how they hire and how they onboard. Because really, by the time you actually onboard someone and give them an offer letter and bring them on, you should understand how their mind works. You should understand what they're capable of. You should understand what their baseline is, right? And this is all, so that's what I work with clients to do, is help them understand the unconscious response. Because I don't need to sit there and ask any inappropriate questions in an interview to get to understand that you're never going to be okay with a male supervisor because of what your daddy did when you were young. And I don't say that from a place of judgment. That's where a lot of our shit comes from. But I think you can ask the right, ambiguous, focused, individualized questions dependent on industry and business structure and all of that in a pre-frame setup of the interview process to immediately weed out of 80% of the applicants. People get blown away when I tell people I've yet to look at a resume.
I think it makes sense. Well, it's an interesting thing too, because how many people completely alter who they are on an interview or a first date?
Exactly.
And so we're going to put forward a persona that we perceive that you are going to enjoy more, which is very, very rarely authentic. And so to be able to figure out how to do a better interviewing thing that works both in dating and in work and business. All right. So let's say we change the policy, we hire differently, we onboard differently. How does that start to eliminate some of the issues that may be in the office then for misinterpretation or, people being like misconstruing, or even the rules are actually not equal, especially like with the men and women. They are not the same. I'll give you an example. This was funny to me because we had a group when I worked at a company where like it was guys and girls working together, and it was like that brother sister thing with everybody. Everybody would just razz on each other and goof with each other, and it was so silly. We worked together for like a year and a half, 2 years. Everybody knew each other. Everybody gave each other crap. And I remember one time I was eating some peanuts. It was a actual can. It was like a can of roasted peanuts. I was actually eating peanuts. And I made a joke where I said, here, you can put some of these nuts in your mouth. Like it was just casual joke of like, and I handed actual peanuts. Here's some peanuts. And that was construed as a sexual harassment issue. And I was like, it sounds like sexual harassment against me. And they're like, why do you say that? And I'm like, because if Brian said it to Steve, it wouldn't be sexual harassment. And if Becky said it to Janet, it wouldn't be sexual harassment. But if a guy says it to a girl, it's sexual harassment. Who's it against then?
Yeah.
Me. It's a personal attack against a guy then. Because if two girls said the same joke, would it still have been sexual harassment?
Of course not.
And if Brian said it to Steve, would it have been sexual harassment?
No.
Well, then it's focused against only one person where this rule applies then.
Right.
So is that a liability or is it not a liability? See what I mean? It's special.
No, I agree with you. And I think with things like that, so first of all, like perfection doesn't exist. We're never going to obtain it. We're never going to get to this place where somebody isn't pissed off by what somebody else said because they didn't sleep well the night before.
Just for this one, mind you, the girl who like we were making the jokes with, we always make jokes. She didn't file anything. She was like, I didn't file that. Like, she was like, I don't care. It's a joke. Like, it wasn't even her who had the complaint.
Right, right. But what I'm saying is like, we never know what's going on in somebody's mind or life or just lived experience that allows them to perceive something in some way. Again, I really like to move through life with the understanding and with the thought process that people, regardless of behavior, are doing the best they can with whatever internal resources they have available at that time. At that time, that was the safest, most resourceful option that person had. Is it unfortunate? Absolutely. Are we ever going to be able to mitigate all of that in the business world? No, we're not. But I think with the combination of working with team mindset, individual personal mindset of the team members, senior leadership from operational and modeling, right? And then culture, that's where culture comes into play. So it's like, okay, well, whoever did file that thing, either number one, the culture of the company is, hey, we rag on each other, we say slightly questionable, inappropriate things. And that was either never really portrayed to that person, this is our company culture. So now it left an opportunity for them to get pissed off in the future, right? It's like, it's the unspoken expectation. So that company with that kind of culture, and again, no judgment. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I either look at things like they're either resourceful or they're not resourceful. That's it. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. So if that culture was resourceful for that company, right, then maybe there was an unspoken expectation that every time they brought somebody new on board, that they would also have that kind of culture. But did they ever ask that question? Did it ever come up? Did they ever get the energy off of it? Which I'm really big on. I always tell people, get the energy off of it. If it's something you're worried about happening in the future, why don't you just get the energy off of it in the interview process and go like, hey, this is how we correlate with each other. This is how we interact. How does that make you feel? How do you interpret that? If I was to sit here and joke around and we had rapport and I said XYZ, how would you interpret that? Well, now I've just mitigated at least a huge portion of it before I've even brought them on as a team member, right? And I'm not telling people this is how you either lead your company this way or not. No, it's not my job to work with a company and tell them that that's inappropriate or appropriate culture, right? It is my job to help them achieve whatever desired outcome they want. And clearly nobody wants an outcome where people are having false accusations and filing reports like that. Well, but we're never going to be able to mitigate all of it.
Well, this goes into the big thing on discomfort. Just mind you, by the way, I'm not saying everybody should be saying everybody put nuts in your mouth. That's just, it was a religious thing, though, too. With the culture of the people that we had, that was a very mild joke in comparison to how everybody would.
I bet. Yeah. If you throw that one out there, there's usually better ones.
There's going to be people who are like they were far more hardcore than that. And it was guys and girls. It wasn't like this. That's why I was saying, like, okay, so it's cool, but somebody has an issue. This gets into the my frailty or my inability to handle things creates I'm offended, which creates I need to make sure everybody does what I can't handle. You need to be in a way that I don't like that. You need to be different. And so now it gets back into the part where you're talking about when do we stop being human, free will. And really it comes down to when you see these situations of control and power. And it usually comes down to control and power very often. People need to try to control how others are. And if it doesn't go the way they want, they'll create an issue for that person. So that person is gone or that person has to suffer. Now, this is where it gets into some of the more serious stuff. These accusations can be very serious. If I've seen husbands who have been falsely accused because somebody just didn't like them of sexual misconduct, something they didn't you can't even prove that it happened. Well, she said this, there's no evidence. I never did that. Well, what happens when a man who's married and maybe has a couple kids now gets fired from his job for sexually being inappropriate to another woman? What do you think the wife says? Silly baby, misunderstanding. No, these women go, you've been cheating on me at work and got busted. So then what happens? He gets fired. Then his wife says, I'm not staying with the cheater, and leaves him, starts smashing him with child support stuff and smashing him with child stuff when he never even did anything wrong. And now in one foul swoop, in one lie, this guy's lost his identity, his career, his family, his livelihood, his kids. He's lost everything because someone wanted to lie. Because they just didn't like him. No evidence needed. No proof required. So then what? What is this not a potential massive issue? And we should just go with, how did the interview go?
No, I think again, I think there's so many, it's so multifaceted, right? Because especially with that scenario, then it goes down to, well, what kind of relationship does he have with his wife? How well do they actually truly know each other, right? And I mean, like, on a really intimate basis of like, how much shadow work have they done together, right? How much have they actually talked about this shit?
Most
And
people
how, what's,
zero
I
shadow
know,
work. And
I
so
know.
how are we supposed to know what that is? If just real talk, you know, if I'm going to do a hypothetical, I'm your husband, you're my wife, and you found out I got fired for messing around with a girl at work. You just good? We're good? You're going to be like, wait a second, hold on. What's going
We're going to
on here?
talk about it. No, see, I take a different approach, and maybe that's because I've done enough work on myself to do that, right? But it's like,
help some people out. What's the approach if like this just happened to a husband?
I would want to understand from my husband what happened. Like, what happened? Because number one, I wouldn't be in a marriage unless I trusted my husband to share with me what actually happened, right? I wouldn't stay in a marriage, right? If I didn't have that element. So if assuming I have that element, right, then we talk about it and allow him to share where he was at. Number one, if we're intimately connected at that unconscious and conscious level, I'm going to know if something sounds or feels off. And then I may ask more questions if I need more clarity. But I would only choose into a relationship where I felt like I could trust my partner at the level of, even if he did make a mistake at something like that he would be vulnerable enough to share it with me and feel safe enough to share it with me. And if he didn't do it, then I pray and I hope that he would feel safe enough to come home and tell me he got fired for something he was falsely accused on, and then we could work through it together. But I also realize that that's fucking rare and maybe hardly ever happens.
Well, how many people would say trust is foundational, but you just got fired for messing around with another girl and I'm supposed to trust you now? Of course you're going to lie to get out of it. Why wouldn't you? People lie to get out of trouble all the time. And so you.
But I think that, but here's the thing. I think that response, if that's the woman's response, then she's got a whole bunch of her own shit that she hasn't been willing to look at.
How is him cheating on me my shit?
Again, like, yes, I get it. I get this is like, you know, I don't know. Let's throw a number out. 90% of humans, right, are going to like be reactionary. But as soon as we can stop being reactionary and allow ourselves to process, how am I actually feeling in this moment? What am I actually scared of in this moment? Because that's what's underneath it. They're fucking terrified either of something their husband maybe did or maybe didn't, or because of some past representation that this experience is modeling for them, or about repressed shit that they don't even fucking know is there because they never dealt with it, right? So it's like, if I'm not willing to ask myself, okay, well, what am I feeling in this moment? Let me slow down. Let me back up. Let me take a breath. Then we're not even having a conscious conversation. We're not even having a vulnerable conversation. And for me, like, one thing I realized, ooh, I just got emotional out of left field. One thing I just realized, because I just went through a divorce, right? We talked about it, you know, briefly before. Like, vulnerable communication both ways is the area that I felt was lacking in our marriage. Now, my ex-husband and I have so much love for each other. And I just want to say, because I know this will go out, like, there's no ill will or ill feelings. I fucked up way more than he did. Let me just put it out. Way more than he did. Right. But my truth is still important. Right. And my truth was that I felt that I was willing and able to hold space and also take responsibility for the shit I hadn't worked on as soon as I became aware of not having to work on it, and being able to vulnerably communicate. And I didn't feel like that was reciprocated. So I think it really starts with, number one, like, how well do we know ourselves before we can even try to interpret how well we know each other, even our partner?
Yeah, thanks for sharing on that one. And like, it's a good question. How well do we know ourselves? I'll tell you, as a person who takes my first 6 weeks of my program to know thyself, people don't know themselves. They don't.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it though. Why? Why don't people know themselves? Well, here's why. When I get to, you want to know what the hardest questions, one of the toughest ones that come up whenever I'm working with somebody, especially men. You want to know what the hardest questions are?
What?
What do you want?
That's what I was going to say. That's what I thought you were going to say.
You know, too. You'd think that people should know, right? You should know. What do you want? What do you want? It's funny because as soon as this comes up, they're like, why don't I know the answer to this? Well, I'll tell you why. When were you not told what to do? Well, let's start off. We had parents, then you had teachers, or you had coaches, and then you had bosses, and then you had, if you were in the military, COs, whatever. There's always somebody telling you what to do. And then at some point, you have to take care of other people, which turns into, well, what do you need? Or what do you need? Now you're in a relationship, or, well, what do you need? Well, what do you want? What do you got? And then you're just taking care of other people. So you're either always told what to do, or you're doing what somebody else says they need. When did you ever take the time to develop the muscle to go, well, what do I want? What are my dreams? What are my goals? And it's a muscle that's very rarely worked out. So why is it not strong? I never had to do that. And so how do you know thyself? And my whole job has been do what everyone tells me to do. And then what do you need?
Yeah, I think most of us don't. And I'll say that because self included, right? So like literally again, in my marriage, we were together for 7 years, 7.5. And this is what I do for my job, right? So you would think that someone that has done as much personal development work, not only on myself, right, within my internal self, and also it is what I do for a living, it is my career, that I would have some solid sense and foundation of knowing myself. Did I have elements of it? Absolutely. I had elements. And there was a huge pocket of repressed shit that I didn't even fucking know existed. That literally I just found out about like 6 months ago. And it unwound me to a point, which like, I mean, I get it. I have blue hair. It's funny, but literally this is how much I was challenging my own identity and who I thought I was as a person. Cause this was up through April. Was in April. I was like, do I even fucking want blue hair? Do I even want blue hair? Because that was how much the awakening I had of all the repressed shit and the shadow work that I still hadn't done, right? Even though I'm in this fucking industry, that it even had me questioning, do I want blue hair? Like that might seem shallow or funny, but like that was the extent of everything of how that was the extent of how much I was questioning my identity. So if I had that experience, and I'm in the industry of personal growth and development, I can't imagine the intensity it must be for everyone else. I mean, I can imagine because once upon a time I wasn't in this industry, right? Once upon a time I was strung out and addicted to heroin. So yeah, I didn't fucking know myself then either. And nobody asked me to answer your question. Nobody asked me what I wanted until I was about 60 days clean off of heroin the first time, 2010. And, somebody asked me what I wanted. And that question changed my life. It was the beginning of what I've become today because somebody asked me the question. So again, it's like, why are we not allowing each other to be human, have our humanness involved? And it's like this, we must be technical and operational and organizational and focused on career and all these things. And I always tell people, let's talk about shit that matters. Sure, I could hang out with you in your garage and you could have a couple beers and we could shoot the same shit. And you could tell me about Sam and Sally, the same stuff from 2 weeks ago. Or we could talk about shit that matters. And this is the kind of shit that matters. The conversation we're having right now.
They're harder. They're a lot harder. Yeah.
Are they? But why are we choosing for them to be hard? It's only because that's what we've patterned ourselves to believe.
Well, correct. But you just said there's a whole bunch of repressed stuff I didn't know. So I'm having a reaction to something I don't even know is there.
Yeah.
And ask me what I want. How about fuck you is what I want. I don't want to talk to you, because I don't know. You showed me I don't know, and I don't like it.
Yeah. And that's part of it too, right? I mean, like, but okay, feel the fuck you, because how long have you repressed that? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I had a client get pissed off at me this morning and I told her, I said, I want you to sit in that for a minute. Give me 90 seconds and I want you to fucking feel that. Because how long have you been pushing that down for? You know?
Oh, I know. Yes. I think there's a lot of things you just unpacked there. And there's a few things too. Just fun fact, and tell me if the numbers are different on this. When it comes to addiction and when it comes to heroin, do you know what the number or percentages of people who usually survive are able to get off of heroin? Maybe the number has changed since I last saw the last study. Do you know what the
I don't know.
is?
I don't know. I know it's small, but I don't know.
It's roughly 1%.
Well,
that's how badass heroin is. For you to be like, I was able to get off of heroin, it's roughly 1% ever do. Most have to find God. They have to find something to believe in that's greater than themselves, because you can't do it alone. But it's 1%. That's the last numbers I've seen. If it's changed since then, maybe, but it's not one of those ones where it's like 50-50. No.
Yeah.
Only the most hardcore make it through that battle.
And it is a fucking battle. Mm-hmm. And I say it in the present tense because it still can control me at any point if I allow it to. Right? I mean, all it needs is sometimes it comes dressed in and I don't mean heroin as the actual drug, but I mean I always like to say, like, I do allow myself to romanticize about the idea for 10 seconds occasionally, because I allow myself to be human. What would not be right or healthy or resourceful for me is to act like it doesn't ever fucking exist, because I tried that for 3.5 years. I tried it, right? To go, okay, that just didn't exist. I'm just not that person. We're just not going to associate or talk about it. And then ended up with a relapse that I also then shoved down, right?
It's denial. It's the denial curse.
Denial
the entire time. Most of our security and systems all start with denial. Men and women. This is women will completely change their identity in multiple different ways to make it so that they can appear that they're doing great, because appearances are more important. And so they'll create an entirely different persona that I'm good. Guys will also do the same thing as masks in different ways. You know, I think I have Lewis Howes has a book I just did a training on the other day on Mask of Masculinity, and it gets into the different mask types that guys will wear. And it gets into everything from the Joker mask or the Stoic mask, the athlete mask, the materialistic mask, you know, the know-it-all, the alpha, you know, the different types of masks that guys will wear to hide that I'm really not okay. But it's a lot of it's suppression, and suppression leads to expression. And so when we like push things down, at some point it comes up, which is why when you're like, well, I'm in the industry and know thyself. I need to know myself. You need to know yourself. You need to know this. And you're like, sounds great. You don't know what you don't know, because our brains actually, it's probably not even our brains, our spirits, our hearts, all these pieces of us are pretty damn amazing. Do you know how I can know how amazing these are? You can actually shut your feelings off. That's incredible that you can even go through something to do that. How about I can make memories disappear? That's amazing. There's a security system that turns traumas into disappeared completely. What is that thing? Like, there's a system in there that can actually make you believe that your fake mask is authentic. You can lie so effectively to yourself, you believe your lie is more real than reality. Amazing. How does repression work? How would you know if you have repression if you really believe that your mask is truly who you are? I've been wearing it so long. Isn't that me? Interesting stuff,
I think
right?
it's fascinating stuff. And yes, that was my big aha in April, was self-deception. I was like, and some of it was stupid little shit that in the grand scheme of things doesn't fucking matter. But again, the level of intricacy involved in the lies that I had told myself that I totally fucking believed. You couldn't tell me otherwise. And then when I woke the fuck up, because that's what I say, I woke up. I woke up in April and was like, holy shit. And then did some really amazing breath work with my breath work coach. And cause I just wholeheartedly believe in, I've never felt more clear. I've never gotten a more unconscious gut response, intuitive hit, whatever you want to call it, every inner knowing, everybody calls it something different. I've never gotten anything stronger than in a breathwork session. And it's always right on point, like every single time. And like literally my second breathwork session, and I hadn't done breathwork, not really like by conscious choice. I just hadn't really thought about doing it in about 10 years. My second session had a repressed memory from when I was 12 years old, disrupted the entire identity I had for myself, and woke up to the self-deception that I had been living since 12. But again, I also have the understanding, thankfully, through my own knowing and knowledge and expertise, and also with working with a therapist, right? Because I think all modalities of therapy, coaching, all of it is important, right? You have to do whatever works for you. Like I have such a conscious understanding of like my brain repressed that memory because that was the safest resource it had available at the time. It was the only thing I knew how to do. So I get to accept that that's what happened. But now that I am consciously aware of the self-deception, of all the things, I mean, I've been a maniac on a mission ever since then, because I'm just like, well, let's abolish that shit because now I am safe enough to create a new pattern. Now I am safe enough, right? And safe is not just physical, right? Mental, emotional, psychological, healing, safety, all of it, right? To be able to go, okay, I can do the work now. You can let me see the memory now. I'm strong enough now. I'm safe enough now. I trust myself now. And these are all things that most humans, in my experience, most of them can't say those things about themselves.
It is a vast majority of people that won't even go on a journey to discover themselves ever. It is. Exactly. It does seem more rare. Most people would watch a cat video or do some funny stuff, or even just vent and never really do anything with it. Like there's just people don't have the tools or understanding or even the willingness. Most commonly, the willingness to want to do something.
That's it. I tell people it's like awareness is great. Awareness is cool. You need it to be able to do anything different. You need to have the awareness of what needs to change in order to change it. But if you don't have the willingness to put it into action, you're wasting everybody's fucking time, including yourself.
It's just an idea.
It's just an idea. It's just a thought. It's just a random thought.
And they come like waves in the ocean. They'll crash and go. They'll crash and go. It's nice. It's a lovely idea, though. Beautiful idea. Are you going to do anything? No.
Right.
Okay. Then nothing changes, And so there's a lot of different warrior types that they have to figure out the balance to things, because that's mind-side warriors. You see the people who want to gather information. I want to know more. I'm going to listen to more podcasts. Not to say you shouldn't be. You should be listening. But then what are you going to do with this? The stuff you're saying, the stuff I'll say. Are you going to do anything with that? Or was it just a nice thing to hear today? Did you make a choice that in the present right now, you can make a decision? Am I going to do something? It's really difficult, though. And this is why you and I exist, is because how do you crack into something that you don't know is there? And how do you answer a question that you don't know exists? Well, that's why people like us exist. Because when I ask you questions you never thought to ask, so you can start digging into a place you didn't know to dig. And just like your girl this morning, a lot of times people are so used to reactions, they don't understand progress.
Right.
We're in a world with blame, shame, and judgment. And so that means if somebody loses their minds, they go, you're fucking crazy. Instead of going like, you're really hurting. Do you see why?
Yeah.
They don't see it. There's no way to do that. I'll give you praise on finding your repressed side. I also unlocked a repressed side for myself this year.
You did.
I'm a master mindset body side. That's my strong side. I started tapping spirit side, soul side 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize my heart side was closed off completely until I had one of my buddies who's a heart side coach crack my wall open. He was like, there's supposed to be a door here. I'm like, there's always been a wall. He's like, no. He's look through the hole. There's a door there. That's your heart side. Whenever anybody would say inner child work, any of that stuff, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm looking body side. I'm looking at the gym. I'm like, no kids there. I'm looking inside the library. I'm like, shh, no kids there. I'm looking spirit side and whatever chapel there would be. And there's like, no kids there. Where's this inner child work? Sounds fucking crazy. It's in your heart side. I didn't know this. When I went in there, it actually brought me to tears when I found that inner child stuff. I didn't know where that was. It was so closed off. I didn't know where that was. And I have a few parts of my heart. I had broken heart, very broken heart. You know, and so the story that we come from, your story, my story, the backstories are different than the people you're talking to right now. You can't talk to people who go in to get people out of hell if they've never been there. And so they hear the story of like, I was addicted to heroin, or I was, you know, abused, abandoned, and have been beaten and left alone. I've been like not treated well. This kid was hurt a lot. Our stories, people go, oh, that's really rough. That's crazy. But look at you now. You're doing so good. You're like, you don't know what the walk out of hell looks like.
Yeah.
You don't know what that walk looks like. You're a 1%er. People think that's what, easy? Well, you should have just quit. 1% make it out of that. You think you should just quit? It shows how little you know about hell.
Yeah.
And so this is where it's interesting to see people who have only ever read the brochure or went to a class about it, and they're an expert, when there's someone who's like, I'm the 1% who made it out of that nightmare, and I keep going back to get more.
Mm-hmm.
I know where you're at. I'm coming to get you. Those are the warriors I'm talking about.
So what was your biggest, feels so cliche. What was your biggest awareness, enlightenment? Where did your biggest marker of progress come from everything you discovered with like opening your heart center?
There's a lot of pieces. I can give you just a few of them that are pretty good. Here's one that was in there because you discover belief systems that were in your heart side. I do a lot of personification. I do it not only when I talk about beating doubt, fear, excuses, distractions, anger, you know, anxiety, depression. Like I use them as separate things so we have a thing to work on, not you are that. Because I take it, I remove that from your identity. Well, even with my inner side work, my warrior side, you know, my mind side, which is more of a Tony Stark Iron Man character, you know, then you've got my apostle-esque, who is humble and listens, and wherever you say, I'm going and I follow, you know, and I surrender, you know, that side. And then my heart side has a few sides in there. And it was, both were one. I had a neglected and hurt child. He was 8 years old when these defenses were built, and so he was locked away. And then I had the most emo, depressed version of me. Was the most like abused, hopeless romantic. So I found a box that was just shattered pieces, and I was like, "What the hell was this?" Like, that was your heart, and this thing has been hurt so bad that like this, like the most like I don't want to hang out with anybody. That guy was in there. And it's ironic when I started doing some of the work in there, the pieces that there are, because my inner child was never protected. He never felt safe. He didn't have protection. He didn't feel good. The people that were supposed to protect him didn't. And so he has attached himself to my warrior, my body side, who fears nothing and will protect him at all costs. In fact, it came out even like when I started doing this, these are emotions that were shut down for so long. Even a conversation with my girl and I became a very hostile conversation because I was opening up a side that's never been there. And she wasn't prepared for that conversation and treated it very poorly. And the warrior stepped in like, fuck you forever. I'll be done with this. Like, if you're going to treat that kid like that, like you're going to catch a door. Like, don't play like that. This is too soft of an area. You want someone to be able to be honest, authentic, open, and vulnerable, and then you smack them when they do it. Wrong. Like, this is where I started finding the protector would come out. Was it correct? Not defending. This was a reaction. So it was this is an area that wasn't trained. My other sides, I don't have those. Like, if there's a disagreement, we have a disagreement. That's no problem. But I had a vulnerable, hurt little kid who was sharing something, and I'm like, don't you fucking dare. Like, that came out because there's a protector now. And I started realizing these pieces of myself where there's an area that it does not have armor built. There wasn't training there. My mind side, my body side, even my spirit side, I can handle a lot. But this side, that's a broken-hearted, depressed guy who's been just hurt by females. And then I got a hurt kid that was abandoned, abused, and beaten. And like one of the things that he found in there, and this doesn't come just from parents, by the way. This is an experience outside. I remember I was around that age, and I was in the hospital. I was sick. It was either like pneumonia or bronchitis. It was something. I was overnight. I was there for a few days. And at that time, their Super Nintendo was out. So I had a Super Nintendo. And I remember it was late at night. I couldn't sleep. And a couple of the nurses, they were in their 20s, were there. And they were just sitting with me. I'm a little kid. I'm like 8 or 9. I'm a little kid.
Yeah.
But we're wizards on these video games. And let's just say I'm playing Street Fighter 2 with these two ladies. And to say whooping her ass is the nicest way it could be said, because it wasn't even, I was Chun-Li-ing her. I was doing one move with E Honda. It wasn't even fair what I was doing to this lady. And I'm a little kid, so I'm like, haha, gotcha. You know, I'm like pumped, like, gotcha again, won again, you know, like I'm, you know, gloating in my victory, right? And I remember that lady, like I said, she had to be in her 20s, maybe mid to late 20s. But this is the lady who's caretaker. This lady's taking care of me tonight. I'm in her care. She got up and threw the controller, and she said, "You're not fun to play with," and she walked out.
Wow.
And I'm a little kid. And I, at that moment, with that one moment, remember, immature 20s, like she has no idea to this day that one sentence changed an entire kid's belief system around being proud of himself. From that day, I realized if I'm ever proud of myself, I'm not fun to play with. And so I built an entire identity because I was very talented. I was very strong. I was fast, and I would win a lot. But if I ever won, I could never be proud of myself because that would make me not fun to play with. So it was always praising someone else if I won. Good game. Hey, nice, you'll get me next time. Like, it was super, super humble, which on the outside seems like a valuable quality to have, but it was inauthentic because I feel like I can't be happy for winning. One sentence from a nurse when I'm a kid changed my belief system around success and victory and joy and pride and anything that I've accomplished. Found that in there. That was in my hard side. A little kid was holding that. But that was a belief system that I carried on for 30 years.
And I think it's so important that everyone do this kind of work, whatever that looks like. I don't care if it's traditional therapy. I don't care if it's woo-woo magic. I don't care, whatever works for you, coaching, you know. But I have such a soft spot and just a love, honor, and respect at a different level for men like yourself that are willing to have, number one, do the work, right? And number two, have these kinds of conversations, right? Because women already judge each other enough, right? With things and the cattiness and the bullshit that goes on. But when I get around men, like there's this safety and your ability to provide is incredible, but it's the gentleness, it's the softness, it's your humanness in this way. When you really are willing to look at yourself and do the work and then share what you found, which I'm sure you already realize because you work with men, but I want to say it out loud because it's important that it fucking matters that you share that stuff. Because I know for men, at least in my experience with men that I've either as a client or as a partner or in my family, it's so much harder in my experience for men to be able to share stuff like that. You know, like how many times have we seen guys that are just bullshitting and playing jokes on each other and be like, oh, you mean one fucking sentence when you were 8, bro? Like, get over it. And then it shuts men down even more.
Depends on
right?
men. It's actually less common from men to men. Like, it does happen. Not saying it's not a thing. Like, cowboy up, don't be a bitch, especially my male.
So does it happen more from women to men? Because we're like, so I don't know if you've read, it's kind of written a little cheesy, but I think it's perfect for like, I don't want to say that. I think it's perfect for the right people that it's written for. However, it's called the Queen's Code. Have you written it? Have you read it? So how it's written is it's telling a story, right? So it's telling a story about this granddaughter and her grandmother teaching her about how men are instinctively providers and safety and this beautiful masculinity that reside in men. And, you know, how women are our own thing and fit into this. And that's really where, when we come together, that's where we really become this queen's code, right? And so the grandmother is taking the granddaughter through her life experience, right? Like she's literally like, oh, this is going on and this is going on. And then it's like it's a self-help book really, but it's written like it's a story, right? And, one of the most beautiful things and heavy things, I say beautiful because I think any growth and awareness and evolution is beautiful, right? But at the time, it like literally just gut punched me, was she was saying how women, we don't even realize, she calls it castrating men. Like we literally castrate you by these tiny little things that we say. That we don't even realize the impact that it has. And I can't remember right now, but there was a couple things that were in the book. And I literally at the time I was married, this was a few years ago. And I took it out to my husband at the time and was like, is this really how you interpret that? And I'm like a pretty loving, kind human in general. Like I like, you can't convince me that I'm this like catty bitch woman, because I just know that I'm not. Like I'm just a loving, kind human. But even some of the things in this book, the littler things I had said to my husband before, even if I wasn't being attacking or whatever, he was like, oh yeah. Like, and he shared, and I was like, I mean, I literally felt like the wind got sucked out of me, because I was like, oh my God, I would never say that even jokingly if I knew that that's how you interpreted it. And it was such a pivotal moment for me to understand how we as women can castrate men with the simplest phrases, and it does so much damage. Like it does so much damage.
You want to hear a thing I've found working with guys? Why? There's a leadership thing for exactly that. First off, well done for even catching this, because there's so many justifications around like treating men this way. Well, you're supposed to be tough. You can handle it. There's supposed to be these things. We're still humans. Now, here's the thing. We got into a conversation. We can get into the empathy talk if you want, because that was a whole thing. But we got into the thing about how women are usually sucked into the comparison curse far easier than the guys. They learn this easier, that women are far more influenced around acceptance and outside opinions than men are. Like they just are. So that's why they learned this back in like the 60s and 70s. They started turning all the ads to focus on moms, because moms would be the ones who would be most likely to go, I'm changing my behaviors because choosy moms choose Jif, and I'm a choosy mom. You know, and so they started changing all the ads to focus on women. You start watching the bounty ads, or you start watching all the stuff is always mom, mom, mom. They even in marketing, they said if you have something for the guys, for the men, it would be like, this is a tool, not a toy. And they're like, I like that. But for moms, it would be like, all the best moms do this. It would be more that Jones effect, that inclusion, that acceptance, that part that makes moms or women the more social creatures for like that group mentality. It takes a village, that whole concept, right?
Yeah.
Because of this, if you look at who is most likely to create new expectations out of nowhere based on information from outside the dynamic. Well, these ads, and you see all these Facebook things or social media, or the comparison of why isn't my family like hers, or look at her, or she lost so much weight, or look at the success she's having, or why is my hair not like hers? She's blue. I want blue hair. Should I look good in blue? Let me do a filter to see if it looks cool like Lotus. Like there's all these comparisons that are constantly happening, that the ads themselves do work to create enough doubt/bargaining to make you want to change yourself. I started asking my men, I'm like, how often do you fall for, like, you saw a Calvin Klein ad, you need those underwear? And they're like, never. I'm like, if I told you that peanut butter is the best, would you get it? They're like, I don't give a fuck. We don't fall for this stuff. True. Outside influences don't make us change. But do you know whose influence does make us change? That's Our Lady. Our girl will change for. And so whose opinion matters most is our girl's opinion. That's our person. And her opinion matters most. But whose opinion matters most to her seems to come outside. So she's influenced by outside influences, and he's only focused on your opinion, but yours can change like the weather because there's so much inundation from your phones or from social media or from talking to other friends or whatever, that women are influenced highly by other women or comparison, and men are not. We're highly damaged by our one person who seems to be influenced by other things. The reason this came up as a leadership conversation is, who do you want leading the pack? The person who's not influenced by outside noise and does what they believe is right, not who is right, or the person who's highly influenced by outside noise and who is right is often more important than what is right? Who should lead?
Well, of course, the first option, but I would also say that doesn't mean that there aren't women out there that are also able to be objective, right?
Like absolutes, of course.
And the
absolutes is the first place everyone goes. Again,
option A,
like to
all
say,
day
like,
long.
no different than saying like you have survived addiction. Well, you can't say like, well, that's a lot of people. It's not a lot of people. Not to say no one ever gets out of heroin addiction. No, it's just very, very small amount of people. So when I go off of like, what am I looking at here? It is the majority, not the absolute. So this is just, why did they change this? Why are these social things there? Why does it keep working? It is going to be the majority. Now, does that mean every woman? Of course not every woman. No, there's nothing that's everything always. The only thing absolute is that absolutes aren't correct. That's the only thing.
And death is pretty guaranteed.
Well, they listen. Depending.
I was going to say, actually, that could be.
Yeah. Hold on. Maybe it does.
That could be a whole nother episode.
The last episode you were on would answer a different way. So
yeah, exactly.
Any case, so then it got into, since a guy's influence it impacts him the most to change is going to come from the person he loves the most, and not from an ad, and not from a Facebook post, and not from a comparison. It's going to come from you. The little things that you say to cut your guy down, they matter. They matter more than anything. Yeah. And so it is a high awareness by the Queen's Code to say, hey, pay attention, because you're chopping your man down, and then after you've cut him to pieces and you wonder, why doesn't he share vulnerability with me? Why isn't he opening up to me? Why won't he be this way? Why won't he be that way? Well, you've shown yourself to have spiky armor, and you're not fun to hug. And anytime he says anything to go like, hey, I'm having a little bit of a thing, you're like, why don't you stop being a bitch about it and just get it done? You're like, well, fuck you forever, and I'm going to shut that piece down. And those count. All you have to do is say you're not fun to play with once to make them no longer feel like you're a good person to play with. Yeah. Like, it counts. Gosh, yeah. So this is one of those things where it matters. And any woman who's listening to this that goes, well, that goes both ways, and what about me? That's you. That's your shit.
Meaning that's that person, right? That's their shit. Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's their shit.
You're the one. Work on your stuff. Because if you, as soon as you go, what about me? You have become the statistic I'm talking about. As soon as you go, well, that happens both ways. You're the statistic I'm talking. You're in the majority. You are that. You're the one I'm talking about. Because this is the point where it came to, I had 200 men, and I did a survey for men to see, like, maybe I'm wrong. Women would say that they're more empathetic than men. They would argue, right? And I was like, well, maybe you're right. Let's see.
I don't know if I would agree with that, but tell me what you found out.
Oh, I'm fascinated. I don't want to ruin your answer. Do you think women are more empathetic than men?
Not necessarily.
Why would you say that? I'm just curious. Girls are triggered right now. She don't know. We're the best. Girl power.
Well, that's fine. But again, I would invite them to take a look at their own shit. Because there's something there if they're willing to take a look at it. There's an opportunity. Because my experience shows me otherwise, right? Here's what I'll say. Even though sometimes, in only my experience here, even though sometimes I have seen the depth of how much men care in a violent way, and I'll go into that in a second, it still shows depth, right? So it's not about because when we're talking about empathy, like, it's not how much they care about one person, How much can they feel, relate, and care with depth, right? And that's where I feel like women in general, don't come for me, ladies. Women in general care a little bit about a lot of people. Love, honor, and respect it. There's no right or wrong here. There's no good or bad. It's just resourceful or unresourceful for you. And for a lot of women, that's very resourceful. What I've found with men is that they care and empathize with extreme depth. And so for that reason, I would even say men are more empathetic.
That's interesting. Maybe I'm translating this correctly. Tell me if you're right, because you said it's depth, and you said women care a little for a lot of people, and men care a lot for a little. Like smaller group, they'll have their pack, and that's who's important to them.
I didn't say that they care a lot for a little. I just said they care with depth.
I'm translating.
I think that
This is a Rick translation. This wasn't you. I
think that the littleness, I don't know that that's true for the man, but
just on this one. When I say, like, I'm just playing with the words, little for a lot for a little, what I mean is, like, I care a lot for a few amount of people and not for everybody, but that's kind of what I mean by it. And so, like, I'm playing with the words a little bit to be, a little more poetic, but like, women will care a little bit for a lot of things, and men will care a lot for a few amount of things.
I actually would even say, and this is totally my assumption, so just put me right back in my lane if I'm wrong. I would say men actually care with extreme depth for most things. It's just that they only show us for a small few.
Okay. So then guys go in depth more than women when it comes to empathy.
Correct.
So
that's what I feel.
Say that guys would be more empathetic than women.
Yes.
Interesting. That's a fresh answer. I haven't heard it said that way, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's been my experience, at least.
No, we can't deny your experience. You have been through that, so that's what you've done. So fair enough.
I don't know. Now I'm like, men don't come for me either. Who's coming for me? I don't know. If we're not pissing somebody off, we're doing something wrong anyway. So let's have at it.
No, my guys won't come. So here's the thing. When it comes to this, when I did this 200-person survey, I asked the guys, I said, do you think that your feelings matter? And they said, yes. I'm like, do you think that your feelings matter to your girl? And all but 3 said no. There were 3 guys. One guy was in complete denial for his relationship, and they are now divorced once he's seen the relationship he's in. And the other 2 guys were still in the honeymoon phase in the first couple weeks of the relationship, and they all broke up. Just so you know, which means it's 100% answer so far across the board that my feelings do not matter to her. And then the last question was, would you like them to? And they all said yes. It was a 100% answer that my feelings are important. They are not important to her, but I wish that they were. 100% answers. After 200 guys, I was like, I'm done answering the question. Like, it doesn't seem like there's enough variables here to really have a true, study happening.
Yeah.
And so in this one, the reason why I say men have more empathy for women is because women exclude one member of the pack for feelings. Now, don't misconstrue well-being for empathy. But I take care of the laundry, and I take care of the dishes, and I take care of the stuff for the kids, and I made sure that you had your thing done, and I bought the plane ticket, and I booked the hotel, and I did the stuff. And you're like, those are all things to be done for well-being, but not one of those things is a feeling.
Correct. Those are logistics. That's what I refer to them as.
Right. So if someone's into logistics, that's not a feeling. And so how often have you been able to go, my man's going through a feeling, and I can empathize with his feelings. Now, another thing that is not empathy is if I were you, I would feel like this. That is not empathy. That's about you again.
That's projection. Right, exactly.
People get that mixed up. So if you're like, I'm really sad because my dog died, and I'm like, oh man, my dog died. Here's how I felt when my dog died. No, I just made it about my dog now when you're going through it. Yeah. That's not empathy. That's turning it into me stuff and taking it off of you stuff. Don't call it empathy.
Yeah.
And so when it came to that, I asked the guys, I'm like, do you care about her feelings? And they're like, I do. Her feelings are important. Do you care about your children's feelings? I do. Like, I've got good dads. Like, remember, the warrior's way makes good alphas. We make good men, and they care about their families.
Let me ask. Yes.
With men,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I care about her feelings. I care about my guy's feelings. I care about the kids' feelings. Care about my parents' feelings. I care about them. Their feelings are important to me. And so I do accommodate my protection, my providing, my presiding in accordance to all members of the pack. Now, women, do they have more empathy when it comes to babies? Yes.
Yes.
Women can sense what a baby needs without words. Guys struggle with this very, very much. This is not part of our build. So women, when it comes to babies, victory. But women, when it comes to men, so far, it's like a 98% fail.
Yeah. And I think it's twofold, right? Where I feel, so much of what you were saying.
Are you seeing the repression piece? I hope you see it.
The repression, what?
Okay, so then what happens with a dynamic like this, where a girl wants to be able to vent to her guy about her stuff and share her feelings, right? I had a tough day. I want to share what's going on with me. I want to share. I want to vent. I want to tell you about my stuff. And you need to listen to my stuff. Don't fix it. Listen, right?
Yes.
So yes, I heard your kids are doing something or somebody's doing something.
I know. I just yelled at them. I yelled in a whisper.
The mom yelled, like, please stop it now. The teeth clench.
I'm like, I'm on a podcast. Can we not do that?
All right. So I was going into the empathy of women. Oh, the repression. So women want to share all of their stuff with guys. Share my feelings. Now, just, guys aren't built for venting. We're fixers. And so it's tough to just listen without fixing. It's not how we're wired. But we're supposed to just listen, but we do want to fix it. Like, oh my God, every single time I'm driving the car, it's doing the squeaking noise. Like, well, do you want me to go fix it? It's most likely a brakes or something. I can fix that. Do you want me to do it? Just listen to my thing right now. It's like, okay, I would have just fixed it though. Damn. Like, okay. Like, do you want to fix? There's the video with the nail. I don't know if you saw that one where the girl had the nail in the head and she's complaining about how like it's always like so much pressure and like I'm snagging holes on my sweaters and it's just so frustrating. It's just so hard. He's like, do you think it might be that nail in your head? Like, oh my God, the nail again? Why don't you just listen to me? Like, okay, I'm just saying we could take it right out and you don't have to any of these problems. Like, why you always make it about you? Those kind of things. So like we're fixers versus just listening to the feelings. And so even with our guys, we train like, listen, I'll listen to all of your stuff. Is this stuff you want us to work on or are you venting? Because I'm letting you know if you're venting, I'm going to compartmentalize into this delete box. And if any of this ever comes up again, that's you. Because I'm going to delete everything you're about to say if you don't want me to involved. She's like, nope, just venting. I'm like, let me have it. Give me all of it.
Chew the popcorn.
Yeah, no problemo. My girl doesn't even listen to my podcast, so she'll laugh at this. If anybody ever catches this, I play a game too whenever we're in this mode because I got 5 girls in this house. So like,
oh my gosh.
So I've learned to know, like, is this something you want me to work on or are you just sharing? And if they're just sharing, this is all going in the delete box. And then I play a game called Highly Agreeable. It doesn't matter how asinine the damn thing is. It doesn't matter how fucking crazy. I am agreeing. They're like, oh my God, and so closed her locker so hard. I'm like, why would she ever? Does she know there's other people there? And they'll be like, yeah, she shouldn't have done that. And then the one girl, we were having like the spirit week. They should have been dressing like us. I'm like, she should have known, right? Like she didn't. She just wore her own thing. I'm like, she could have just asked. Why didn't she just ask you? You would have told her. I would have told her. It's spirit week. And I'm like, so I just do that. So I do it with all of them. I do it with grandma too. I do it with all of them. And like I very rarely get caught. I just agree. But they also sometimes they get caught and they're like, well, thank you for at least playing along. Because like sometimes I'm a little ridiculous. Like you should sue them. They're like, we're 13. We're not doing that. So like, sometimes I go too far. But I'm going to delete everything that you just said because this is just, you're just putting the feelings on the table with no regard. And so there's nothing to fix, nothing you want fixed. In fact, whenever I do hero work, and guys will enjoy this one, I'll say, hey, Lotus, do you need any help or do you need anything with this? And most likely you would say,
no,
you're good. I'm like, as you wish. Consider it done. I'm like, do you need anything? You're like, no, I don't need anything. I'm like, consider it done. In fact, I'll do it twice. You don't need anything? I'll give you nothing. You're welcome. I'll give you exactly what you asked for. In spades. And so guys can appreciate that. Doing less is actually better than me trying to insert what I believe you really meant it was and then messing up when you really didn't want anything.
Right.
All right. So now going back to the repression side. What happens if a guy wants to just unload all his stuff on his girl? I'm having a really tough time with this, and I'm getting really sad with this, and I'm overwhelmed with this, and I don't know if I want to keep this job, and I'm having my own mental health issues. I'm going through this stuff. Women go into protection mode. They go, if you're having that kind of problem, then I better get another job, and I better take up some stuff, and I need to do this now, and I guess I have to do this, and if you can't handle it, I guess I better start doing that then. And not one thing that comes up is going, oh shit, my guy's hurting. It doesn't come up. Oh no, you're my guy's floundering. Instead of going, I'll be there to help you, babe. They go, oh shit, I better make sure that my life jacket is taken care of. Well, your guy's drowning. Oh, he's strong. He'll be fine. Can you throw him like a lifesaver or something?
But you realize, I hope men and women out there understand, like, not all women, but for me, because everything you're saying is just really landing and it's beautifully painful to hear it this way, just because of my recent divorce, right? And everything. And when you just said, like, go into protection, I was like, I don't know about that. But then when you actually said, and that's what this looks like this, and this, like, one of his things was, I didn't hear him. He was trying to tell me stuff and I didn't hear him, because for 6 years, 6.5, he didn't vulnerably communicate. And then he started to in January, and I just shut him down. I didn't intentionally do it. I would never, like, I'm telling you, when I woke up in April, because he said it so fucking loud that I was like, oh my God, he's hurting. Like, I mean, it woke me the fuck up. I was fucking devastated. I was devastated, because there's no world that exists where I would ever want my partner or definitely not my husband, but any partner ever, any person in my life ever, but especially my husband. I would never want them to feel unheard or unseen or unfelt or unsafe, for that matter, because he definitely didn't feel safe to fucking communicate anymore after that.
Correct. It validated the reason he had the defense system in the first place. As soon as any guy does this, women do not, but again, no empathy. If there is no empathy for a man, you wouldn't care if he said, you know what, I'm going to take the armor off and I'm going to share something. And this is a vast majority of men when they do this. I was like, you got to make sure you use your armor correctly. Like, no, I'm aware of my armor. I'm going to take it off. I'm just going to open up. I'm like, she's not trained, dude. Like, you're going to get a reaction. Like, no, I got this. They all come back going, dude, I'm fucked up from that one. I'm like, what happened? I took the armor off and she stabbed me as hard as she could. I'm like, yeah, you probably should have kept that armor on until she got some training, bro. Like that.
Well, and I think even
the most damage I've taken in a long time.
Well, and I think for some of us, especially like women that have done some level of personal development work, right? Or just inner work on themselves, like, all it would have taken for me to be able to hear him was, like, literally, like you said, he could have even used those words. Like, I need to take the armor off and share something. But because there was it was never there before. And all of a sudden it was a side of him I had never seen. I didn't know what to do with it. So I didn't think it was a big deal. And again, it wasn't like, I didn't think I castrated him, right? Like, I just was, but now looking back, I go, oh my God, I fucking dismissed him. Like, he was fucking garbage. Did I mean to dismiss him? No, I didn't understand how heavy and intense and uncomfortable it was for him to say what he said. I didn't fucking understand.
Mm-hmm. And this is why guys need their guys.
Yeah.
I'm putting it out there, and I put it out there openly for everybody. Even in the Warrior's Way, I have guys come in every day going, I know this is the only place, even in my own home, that I can take my armor off and put my shit. I know that I can come in here and go and do real work. And then afterwards we can joke around and razz on each other and laugh our asses off.
Yeah.
And then I can put my armor back on and go out and be the man that I know I need to be for everyone else. But there has to be a place where you really can be a human with no blame, no shame, no judgment. They're not needed, but you have to be able to heal somewhere, because everywhere else you're expected to be the big, strong lion. And there has to be some place where you can let it out.
But don't you think that it's also possible for, especially in a partnership, like in a union, right? In a relationship, don't you think it's also possible to do that healing to some degree together with the right communication?
Possible is an easy word. Possible. Is it possible? Yes. Is it common? No. No. Is it possible for a woman to become empathetic for a man's feelings without judgment? It's possible. I haven't seen it probably more than a single-digit percentage done ever, and I've met thousands and thousands of people. It's just not common, especially with the societal push on women right now to have burden of performance on top of burden of beauty. There's way less empathy for men. And then look at the emasculation of young boys these days. It comes up to the point where like guys in their 20s almost have no drive. They don't talk. Like if you're looking, I talk to women and other women's coaches. Men are not approaching women anymore. That's a thing. This is a real thing. Well, why is that a thing? Well, you've been beating the shit out of these boys for even being men, because being men is bad for so long. And then again, how many times does a girl have to call rape when there isn't one? Like you just went in for a kiss and she'd be like, you just rape charge. That guys are like, I'm not even going to play the game anymore. Yeah. What happens? You know, I don't know if you've seen Universe 25 stuff and things like this. This is what happens. You listen, text me later. Watch stuff on Universe 25. It was a Calhoun experiment back in the 60s. And it's what happens when you have utopia. And what starts happening to societies when things are so good that the problems we have are so small that we create massive society issues that start wiping out the society itself. It's an extinction level issue. And so it's those kind of things that are happening now. What's going on with these boys? I got 3 daughters. I have to teach them how to be able to communicate to boys so that the boys feel like they can even talk to them. The boys aren't asking girls to homecoming anymore. Boys don't ask for proms anymore. It's like this weird kind of odd group text message agreement thing. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to do it. Yeah. And boys are like, they have to do it in these like massive safeguards because there's so much societal shame for being male. Who do you think is doing societal shame for being male? How do girls bully and how do boys bully? Well, think about it. Boys bully based on who's the weakest, and it's usually physical. It can also be based on competition, but usually the better the competition, after they fight, they become friends. Right. But boys will pick on the ones who are the most frail or least likely to fight back, and that's usually the boys who have been hurt the most will do the most hurt to somebody else. That's how boys bully. It's usually a physical thing. Is it devastating? It can definitely be, for sure. How do girls bully? It's not as physical. It's going to be reputation demolition. It's going to be dismantling who they are in social structures. It's going to be kicking them out of group chats or not including them in the first place. It's going to be inviting everyone to the party but you. Girls do things in a very different way.
Yeah, it's emotional.
It's to destroy who you are, not just hurt you, but to destroy you, who you are as a person. Well, what happens now when we have a society where women want power, but they do not have empathy for boys or men? These are sons. These are nephews. These are your kids who are now growing up feeling ashamed for existing because you didn't want to compete.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I have a 15 and a 17-year-old boy. You know what I mean? So I totally get it. And I've seen and here's what I'll say, like, ladies, don't come for me. I'm all about women's rights and equality and all of that jazz, but not at the damage to men.
Yeah, you can't destroy your sons so that way you can call it equality. Because remember,
Right.
reputation
Like,
demolition is not equality.
yes.
If I have to chop your knees off so I can win a race, we're not equal.
No. And
This
you're
is
not
where
winning.
This is, this is why I ask people. I'm like, let's just say I've got a person who's 7 feet, a person who's 5 feet, and a person who's 3 feet tall, right? And I've got a 4.5 foot fence, and they all have to get over that fence. Well, is it equal that they all have the same fence, or should the guy who's tall get down on his knees, and should the short person get stairs?
Yeah.
Which one is equal?
It reminds me of Survivor. Do you ever watch Survivor?
Mm-hmm.
The TV show? You know, all of the things that they do is by height, weight, size, all of it, how they set them up for each individual person so that it's as fair across the board.
Is equal as it
right. Size, height, all like arm span, like all of the jazz, right? Which like that's the fair way. That's the most resourceful way.
Right. Well, in that case, that would be like, okay, if that's fair, well, then the short person should get stairs and the tall person should be shorter. So now everyone's 5 foot. So now it's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
But God didn't build us that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same fence for everybody. You're going to go under it, over it. You're going to step over it. You're going to jump it. You're going to become more athletic. You can choose how you handle this fence. Heck, you can chop the fucking things open and go through the middle of it. Figure out your way. So the short person's like, I'm just going to clip the things and go right through. Nice.
Yeah.
Tall guys, I'm stepping right over it. No problem. You know, middle guy's like, I'm an acrobat. I don't need to worry about it. No problemo. Figure out your way.
Right.
So I don't know if it's necessarily that, like, you know, for a competition thing like that, for sure. A Survivor thing, maybe. Something like who can hold out this pound for pound thing the longest, for sure. Let's do that. That sounds fine. But in life to say, you know, you need to become less so that it's equal. Well, why do I have to knock you down so that way we can go and do the same thing? We weren't ever made to be equal. And not even just men and women, men and men, women and women. We're not equal.
Human to human.
We're not
human
equal.
To human. Yeah.
We're all different in different stuff. You're good at certain things. I'm good at certain things. We were never supposed to be equal to begin with. We have completely different gifts and different abilities. To say equal, that's a different thing. Now, I'm with you with equal rights, but I am open to hear what rights women have that men don't, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm open to hear which rights they don't have.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I think what I used to, let me be really intentional with my words here. What I used to put more energy on myself was like the whole equal pay conversation. But then I was like, okay, but that could look a whole lot of ways too, because it doesn't mean that just because I am biologically a female that I should get paid the same as my biological male counterpart. What's our skills and expertise, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's our mindset that we bring to the table? What's our leadership capability if it's a leadership role? How do we fucking communicate? Do people even look up to us or do they hate us, right? Like, meaning the team, right? I think there's even that, like, again, I used to just be like, yeah, women are underpaid. And yes, at the time I did feel like there was absolutely a huge wage gap. And there was, you know what I mean?
At one point there was.
Yeah. At one point, right? And now I'm just like, well, okay. I mean, sure, you could sit in that wage gap and bitch about it, or you could do something about it. I mean, I finally just got to the point where I was like, fuck it, I'll just go do it for myself. Deuces.
Which you can now. Which you can.
You know, right?
You're in a generation now that you can just go and start it for yourself. Even a lifetime ago, there are people alive still when you couldn't do that.
Right. No, I understand, and I have compassion for that because that was their experience. However, that is not the reality today. Right. So yes, we can learn from our past and we can learn from history, but why are we choosing to beat ourselves up in the present for something that is different now? There's a different lens now.
Gender pay gap. I got a gender pay gap for you. Are all guys paid the same?
No.
Well, shit. We got a discrepancy then. All men should be paid the same.
Right.
If women should be paid the same as men, then all men should be paid the same too.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I get it. Yeah, for sure. Understood.
Right? Are all women paid the same as women?
No.
No. Do you want to know where the biggest discrepancy was? Is first off, the way that it was looked at was just annual pay without checking hours, without checking like what was involved. And this is where whenever anybody ever challenged the gender pay gap, like even in courts and even in like those situations, like I would watch the videos and they're like, how did you guys measure like this difference here? Was it hourly? What was the measurement? And they're like, no, we just went annually. They're like, well, this person's a mother and they worked like way less hours than this person who didn't have any kids.
Yeah.
Like, did we account for this? And when they looked at it, I even watched a few different studies. One of the biggest discrepancies was moms and other people, because single women and single men made about the same. But moms would take a lot more time off of work than the other people would. And also dads were not given the same freedom to go to rehearsals or basketball games or plays or recitals or whatever it would be. Guys were like, no, have her record it. And so how many times did you see mom sitting there like this because dad couldn't get off of work, but she could?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, there's just so many layers to it, right? There's so many layers. And I think at the end of the day, like, we just got to keep doing the best we can with the resources we have available at the time. And then always be challenged.
Like, I was curious. I was curious, like, are we really working well together here? Is it really going well? The jury is really out. Like, I even watched a couple of psychology. One thing was Jordan Peterson. Another thing was another person where I'm like looking at like the jury is out. Well, there's other countries that did androgynous outfits, completely box outfits for everybody. Cause they're like, we have to stop the fraternizing. And so they're like, let's just make it so everyone looks as unattractive as possible. It was somewhere in Indonesia. And that's probably not the way, right? Probably not the best way to do it. Correct. There's no individuality. There's no humanity to it. Make everybody dress like boxes so you can work. It doesn't work. Right. But then they were like, well, where's the line at? You know, because like each thing that a woman would wear to accentuate herself is designed for a reason. Lipstick does a thing. Blush does a thing. You know, eyelashes do a thing. Push up bras, you know, tight clothes, like high heels, fake nails, you know, these all do a thing. There's a reason for them. They change the shape. They change the look for something, perfume even, right? And they're like, well, where is the line where it starts becoming too seductive or too attractive or too attention getting? Like, is it lipstick? You know, and the guy who was interviewing and that one was like, no, it's not lipstick. That seems fine. He's like, okay, what about if she came in lingerie? Like, oh my God, so inappropriate. Okay. Somewhere between lipstick and lingerie. I don't know where the line is, though. We don't know where it is.
But that would mean that it's like you're looking at it like it has to be black or white. Like, where's the line is very like, where's the black or white? But we're fucking gray. Like, we're humans. It will always be gray. Right. The jury's out, and all we can do is continue to evolve. That's it. Yeah. All we can do is try different things, try different hats on, try different rules and processes and procedures, try different mindsets, learn new things, do the best we can with the information we have available at the time. Sometimes we're going to succeed massively. Sometimes we're going to fail miserably. As long as we keep learning from every failure, then we're evolving. And that's the whole fucking point.
There it is. There's the whole fucking point. Keep evolving. Keep evolving.
Do it.
Quit lying and getting people fired. Don't do that either.
Don't do that.
Treat people the way you want to be treated and keep evolving. That's where we're going to leave.
And care about men's feelings.
Yeah, and maybe practice empathy. Just only the empathy that you would want.
Correct.
Let's go back to the golden rule, at least, guys. And if you're not doing it, it's you. And if you have an excuse or you immediately switch it back to, well, what about me? It's you. It's your shit. And then
if you have if you have any problem with anything we've said here today, it's also you. We invite you to do the work.
You found it. You found your trigger. That makes it so you know what to work on. Congratulations, because we can't accept other people's thoughts.
You're halfway there.
We're proud of you. I'm proud of you for finding the part of you haven't worked on yet. Now you can know what inner child work is, because that's what we were talking about, because you're pissed off because you can't handle the reality of somebody else's opinion. And so now you need to control it because you're not there yet. You found what to work on. We're proud of you. If you need help, reach out. We'll show you how to do it.
We're here.
Lotus, if they do want to reach out, this lady's badass. I want her for my business. How do I get in touch with her? Where do they go?
Yes. So they can hit me up on my website, which is just renegademindset.com, or you can email me directly at lotus@renegademindset.com.
Badass. Way to go, Renegade. The flower that bites. I like it. Listen, I would call you this. I would probably do something like codename Flytrap. That's what I would call you.
Flytrap.
Yeah. Here's why. You're one of those things. It's enticing. It's cool. It's wonderful. But she will snap your ass. She'll get you out. She'll tear your shit apart. Don't mess with this flower.
In the best way possible.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I like it. Flytrap.
She'll pull you out. She's dangerous. All right, badass. It's good to hang with you. Thank you again for being here with us, and we appreciate you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.